What started as a light-hearted tease among dear friends and family members spiraled into something entirely unforeseen. My husband, Mark, was perpetually the one who laughed the loudest, pulled off the most ridiculous stunts, and dismissed any gravity with a wide smile. Therefore, when our group chose to abandon him at that outdoor gathering area merely a quick car ride away from our residence, we imagined it as a harmless bit of fun. I chuckled to myself, envisioning his entertained response upon discovering us at the close-by eatery, figuring he would thumb a lift or ring us up displaying his typical easygoing grin. However, on that particular afternoon, the gag twisted into anything but amusing. Mark failed to come back to our house that night. At first, I assumed he was retaliating with his own trick, maybe lingering in the forested area or bunking at a pal's place to rattle our nerves. I waved it away with a chuckle, encouraging the others to keep their composure. Nevertheless, come dawn, with his cell phone still unresponsive, the merriment evaporated from my voice. A twist of anxiety knotted deep within my stomach. By the middle of the day, I reached out to law enforcement. They proposed he could simply require some space to unwind. Yet I understood Mark far more intimately than that suggestion implied. In spite of his clownish attitude, he would never keep me uninformed in such a manner. He wasn't the type to nurse grudges. My thoughts kept circling back to the instant we sped off, his face displaying a mix of confusion and subtle entertainment. Could that have been the final sight I'd ever catch of him in that state? The subsequent days were swallowed up by remorse and desperate hunts. His vehicle stayed stationed at the gathering spot, his knapsack left undisturbed inside the rear compartment. It defied all logic. He wouldn't simply evaporate without basic necessities such as hydration or his mobile device. The officers initiated a thorough sweep of the adjacent woods, and I participated, bellowing his name until my vocal cords ached fiercely. Every crackle of a branch made my heartbeat surge. Yet Mark remained elusive anywhere. Time stretched on interminably over the following weeks. Phone calls from acquaintances tapered off, and murmurs spread suggesting our innocent mischief may have overstepped boundaries. Certain individuals theorized that Mark had opted to go missing on purpose, implying that our union wasn't as flawless as it appeared on the surface. Those comments pained me, but what inflicted even greater wounds was the sliver of accuracy embedded within them. Recently, Mark had appeared more reserved, his grins shaded with fatigue, as though concealing a subtle sorrow. Subsequently, during one twilight hour, an unknown caller ID illuminated my screen. Upon answering, a shaky tone uttered, "Lena, it's me." My pulse halted. It was indeed Mark. Emotions overflowed in tears as alleviation and anger crashed together. "Where have you been?" I insisted. Following a hesitation, he replied, "Close by, though not back at the house yet. There's something we must discuss beforehand." We convened at a serene restaurant on the town's periphery. He appeared altered, thinner, weathered by the sun, but possessing an eerie serenity that disturbed me profoundly. I rushed forward to hug him tightly, but his limbs hung loosely without response. "Mark, what occurred? Where exactly were you?" I urged. Gazing fixedly at his mug of coffee, he murmured quietly, "After everyone departed and left me stranded, it struck me hard. You all viewed it as comical, deserting me as if I amounted to very little. But right then, I realized just how invisible I had turned out to be." His statements carved deeply into my core. I faltered in explaining that it had merely been a silly hoax, utterly trivial. But he gently negated with a motion of his head. "It went beyond that single incident, Lena. It encompassed years of serving as the butt of jokes, being dismissed casually, regarded as the buffoon in every narrative. That afternoon simply exposed it all clearly." I found myself at a loss for words, remorse weighing heavily upon my heart like a burden. He described how he had roamed extensive distances, eventually arriving at a companion's secluded lodge, where he remained to ponder deeply. "I had to determine whether coming back held any value at all," he admitted openly. "Yet afterward, I recalled the depth of my affection for you. That's the reason I'm present now. Not to conclude the mockery, but to commence afresh." Salty drops rolled down my cheeks as I repeated sorries endlessly, but Mark merely seemed fatigued. "What's done cannot be undone," he stated softly. "But perhaps we might evolve because of it." That evening, We traveled back to our dwelling without exchanging words, my glances flicking toward him repeatedly, gripped by fear that he might disappear once more. Upon arriving home, all seemed identical. The sofa, the photographs in frames, his partially completed book resting on the bookshelf. Nonetheless, an element in our connection had altered permanently. He unpacked without fanfare, then paused in the rear garden, staring toward the horizon where he had previously bantered about constructing an outdoor fire area. In the ensuing weeks, we conversed with an unfiltered candor that was entirely novel to us. He disclosed how belittled he had sensed within his personal existence, how the chuckles that formerly brought him joy had morphed into symbols of his loneliness. For the initial occasion, I genuinely paid attention. The individual whom we had all branded as a simpleton harbored a profoundness that I had never taken the effort to perceive. Numerous months have elapsed since that pivotal day. We have ceased exchanging barbs that come at one another's cost. Occasionally, reflecting on how near I was to forfeiting him entirely sends shivers coursing through my body. What was intended as a whimsical trick imparted a deep insight to us. Affection can fade away amid silent disregard, not solely through disputes, and nobody ought to sense like the target of humor within their personal sanctuary. Although Mark has extended pardon to us, I have yet to completely pardon my own actions. His comeback did not merely redefine our partnership, it fundamentally altered who I am. I have arrived at the understanding that those we deem silly frequently carry the most substantial emotions, patiently awaiting recognition from somebody who cares enough to observe them truly.